The phone trembled in my hands like a dying bird, and what I saw on that glowing screen felt like someone had reached into my chest and crushed my heart with bare hands. There he was, Julian, my husband, my first love, my entire world for the past 3 years, sitting across from another Omega in an upscale Italian restaurant I'd always wanted to visit, but we could never afford. Their fingers were intertwined on the white tablecloth, and he was smiling at this stranger the way he used to smile at me on our wedding day. The photo wasn't blurry or old. It was crystal clear, time-stamped just 40 minutes ago. Sent by my friend Marcus with a message that made my stomach drop. "I'm so sorry, Evan. I saw them at Rossini's. I thought you should know. My name is Evan Kane, and until this exact moment, I believed I was living the life I'd always dreamed of. I'm an Omega, 26 years old, working as a graphic designer at a small agency downtown. Julian was everything to me, my college sweetheart, the alpha who promised me forever under the cherry blossom trees where he proposed. We'd been married for almost 3 years, and not once had I questioned his loyalty. I trusted him completely, maybe foolishly so. But now, staring at this photograph, I felt like the ground beneath me had turned to quicksand. The other Omega in the picture was beautiful in a delicate, porcelain way that made me feel inadequate. I recognized him from the company party last month, Julian's new executive secretary, the one he'd mentioned casually over dinner a few times. Just a colleague, he'd said. Very professional. Professional. Right. I didn't remember making the decision to leave our apartment, but suddenly I was in my car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. The rational part of my brain screamed at me to confront him, to call him, to demand an explanation. But a deeper, more primal part of me needed to see it with my own eyes. I needed confirmation that this nightmare was real. The drive to Rossini's took 15 minutes, though it felt like hours. My heart pounded against my ribcage like it was trying to escape. When I pulled into the parking lot, I could see them through the floor-to-ceiling windows. They were still there, still holding hands, still lost in their private little world. Julian was leaning forward, saying something that made Cole laugh, that soft tinkling laugh that probably made every alpha in the room turn their head. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I just sat there in my car, watching my marriage dissolve through a pane of glass. Then Julian lifted Cole's hand to his lips and kissed his knuckles. That was it. That was the moment something inside me broke completely. I started the engine and drove away. Not back home. Anywhere else. The city lights blurred past me as tears finally came, hot and angry and devastating. I drove without direction, without purpose, just trying to outrun the images seared into my brain. Hours passed. The sun set. The streets grew quieter. I found myself in a part of town I rarely visited. Older buildings, dimmer streetlights, fewer people. And then I saw it. A small bar with a flickering neon sign that read The Velvet Room. It looked dark and anonymous, exactly what I needed. I'd never been much of a drinker. Julian always said Omegas should be careful with alcohol, that we were more susceptible to its effects. But Julian had also said he'd love me forever, and look how that turned out. Inside, the bar was nearly empty, a few solitary figures hunched over their drinks, lost in their own misery. The bartender, a middle-aged beta woman with kind eyes, didn't ask questions when I ordered whiskey. She just poured it and slid the glass across the scarred wooden bar. The first sip burned, the second one less so. By the third glass, the sharp edges of my pain had dulled into a throbbing ache. That's when I noticed him. He was sitting alone in a corner booth, partially hidden in shadows. Even from across the room, his presence was magnetic, dangerous in a way that should have sent me running. He was an alpha. I could tell from the commanding way he held himself, the broad shoulders, the strong jawline visible even in the dim light. His dark hair was slightly disheveled, and he wore an expensive-looking black shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his forearms. But it was his eyes that caught me. Sharp, calculating, yet somehow hollow, like he was looking at the world through bulletproof glass. He was staring at me, not in a predatory way, but with a kind of recognition, as if he saw something in me that mirrored whatever demons he was drinking away. Maybe it was the alcohol. Maybe it was the pain. Maybe it was the reckless need to feel anything other than betrayed and worthless. But I found myself sliding off my bar stool and walking toward him, my heart hammering for entirely different reasons now. "Is this seat taken?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. He studied me for a long moment, then gestured to the empty bench across from him. "It is now." Up close, he was even more striking. His face all sharp angles and shadowed planes, with a small scar cutting through his left eyebrow. His scent hit me then, pine and smoke, and something darker, more complex. It made my omega instincts hum with both warning and attraction. "Bad night?" he asked, his voice a low rumble that I felt in my chest. "The worst." I tried to smile, but it came out broken. "Yours?" Let's just say I'm questioning every decision that led me to this barstool. We didn't exchange names. We didn't talk about our pasts or our problems in any detail. Instead, we sat in companionable silence, occasionally sharing observations about nothing important, the terrible music playing overhead, the bartender's collection of vintage glasses, the rain that had started to fall outside. But there was something building between us, an electric current that grew stronger with each passing minute. When his hand brushed mine across the table, I didn't pull away. When he suggested we leave, I found myself nodding. I don't remember much about the walk to his hotel. I remember the rain soaking through my clothes, the warmth of his jacket around my shoulders, the way my name sounded when I finally told him. Evan. He'd repeated it like he was committing it to memory. "I'm Archer." What I do remember, with painful clarity, is waking up the next morning in an unfamiliar bed. My body ached in ways both pleasant and regretful. The sheets beside me were cold. Archer was gone. No note, no number, no trace except for the faint scent of pine and smoke lingering on the pillow. I gathered my clothes in silence, shame washing over me in waves. What had I done? I'd just cheated on my cheating husband with a complete stranger. The walk of shame back to my car felt endless. By the time I reached my apartment, the home I shared with Julian, the sun was fully up, mocking me with its cheerful light. Inside, everything looked exactly as I'd left it. Normal, untouched, like the entire world hadn't just imploded. Julian came home that evening smelling like expensive cologne and lies. I was sitting on the couch, still wearing yesterday's clothes, staring at a blank television screen. He walked in with his briefcase and that easy smile, the one that used to make my heart flutter. "Hey, sweetheart. I tried calling you all day. Everything okay?" I couldn't look at him. If I did, I might either scream or break down completely, and I wasn't ready for either. "Fine." Phone died. He accepted this without question, which somehow made it worse. The old Julian would have noticed my swollen eyes, my disheveled appearance, the way I was holding myself together with mental duct tape. This Julian just loosened his tie and asked if I'd started dinner. "Not hungry," I managed. Over the next several days, I perfected the art of avoidance. I left for work earlier than necessary, sometimes sitting in my car in the parking garage for an hour just to avoid breakfast conversation. I stayed late at the office, taking on extra projects I didn't need. When Julian texted asking when I'd be home, I'd respond with vague one-word answers. Soon, later, busy. He tried. I'll give him that much. He suggested date nights, cooking together, watching our favorite shows. Each invitation felt like a knife twisting deeper, because I kept wondering if he'd done the same things with Cole. Had he taken him to our favorite restaurants? Made him laugh with inside jokes that used to be ours? Alone, a week after that devastating night, I couldn't take it anymore. I packed a bag while Julian was at work. Just essentials, nothing that would make him suspicious, and showed up at Tyler's apartment. Tyler Morrison had been my friend since college, one of the few alphas I genuinely trusted. He was tall and athletic, with warm brown eyes and an easy demeanor that put people at ease. When he opened the door and saw my face, he didn't ask questions. He just pulled me into a hug and said, "Guest room's yours for as long as you need it." That night, I finally told him everything. We sat on his balcony with cheap beer and expensive grief, and I spilled it all, finding out about the affair, my reckless night with a stranger named Archer, the crushing weight of not knowing what to do next. "What are you going to do about Julian?" Tyler asked gently. "I don't know. I can't even look at him without feeling sick." I shook my head. "And this Archer guy, one night stand with someone whose last name I don't even know. I'll never see him again." Famous last words. The symptoms started suddenly. A wave of dizziness when I stood up too quickly. Food that normally smelled appetizing suddenly made my stomach turn. Exhaustion that sleep couldn't cure. I chalked it up to stress. My life was falling apart, after all, but when I threw up 3 mornings in a row, Tyler insisted on driving me to the doctor. "It's probably just a stomach bug," I protested weakly. "Then we'll confirm it's a stomach bug, and I'll buy you soup." "Come on." Dr. Sarah Chun had been my physician for years. She was professional, thorough, and knew better than to accept "I'm fine" as a diagnosis. After a basic examination and some questions about my symptoms, she ordered blood work. Waiting for results felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. Tyler sat beside me in the sterile examination room, his leg bouncing with nervous energy. When Dr. Chun returned, her expression was carefully neutral in that way medical professionals have when delivering life-changing news. "Mr. Kane, your test results show elevated levels of HCG." My mind went blank. What does that mean? "It means you're pregnant. About 4 weeks along, I'd estimate." The room tilted. Tyler's hand shot out to steady me, but I barely felt it. "Pregnant." The word echoed in my skull like a scream in an empty cathedral. That's not possible. My husband and I haven't." I trailed off, reality crashing down. Julian and I hadn't been intimate in over 2 months. He'd always had excuses: work stress, headaches, exhaustion. Now I knew why, which meant this baby could only be from one night. One terrible, wonderful, regrettable night with a stranger named Archer. "Are you all right?" Dr. Chin's voice seemed to come from very far away. "Do you need a moment?" I needed more than a moment. I needed to rewind time, to make different choices, to not be sitting here being told I was carrying a stranger's child while my marriage crumbled around me. Tyler drove me back to his apartment in silence. I stared out the window, one hand unconsciously resting on my still flat stomach. A baby. Archer's baby. A piece of someone I'd never see again, growing inside me. "What are you thinking?" Tyler finally asked as we pulled into his parking space. "I'm thinking my life is officially a disaster movie." He didn't disagree. That night, lying in Tyler's guest bed, I made a decision. I would keep this baby. I didn't know how I'd manage as a single Omega parent. Didn't know how I'd explain it to Julian or my family or anyone. But this tiny cluster of cells was mine, and I would protect it. My phone buzzed with another message from Julian. "Where are you? We need to talk. Please come home." Home. The word felt meaningless now. That apartment had been our sanctuary, the place where we'd built our life together. Now it was just a building full of broken promises. I turned off my phone and pulled the blanket over my head, trying to ignore the questions multiplying in my mind like malignant cells. Should I tell Archer? How would I even find him? Did he deserve to know he was going to be a father from a one-night encounter born from mutual pain? Sleep didn't come easily that night, and when it did, I dreamed of pine-scented shadows and sharp green eyes watching me from across a crowded room. The next morning, I woke up to Tyler making pancakes, his go-to comfort food. As I sat at his kitchen counter, forcing down bites I couldn't taste, I wondered if it was possible to feel this lost, and still somehow find a way forward. My hand drifted to my stomach again. I guess it's just you and me, kid, I whispered. But I was wrong, because fate, as I would soon discover, had other plans. The days blurred together in a haze of morning sickness and existential dread. Tyler was patient, bringing me ginger tea and crackers, never pushing me to make decisions I wasn't ready for. But I could see the concern in his eyes whenever he looked at me. I was barely eating, barely sleeping, just existing in this strange limbo between my old life and whatever came next. "You can't hide forever," he said one morning, finding me on the balcony staring at nothing. "Eventually, you'll have to figure out your next move." "I know." My voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. "I just need a little more time." Time, as it turned out, was not on my side. Tyler worked as a senior marketing executive for a major firm downtown, and once a month they hosted networking events for industry professionals. He'd mentioned it casually over breakfast, suggesting I might want to come along. "Getting out might do you good," he said. "Plus, free food. High-quality free food." I almost said no. The thought of putting on nice clothes and pretending to be a functional human being felt exhausting. But Tyler's hopeful expression wore me down. "Fine, but I'm leaving if anyone tries to make small talk about quarterly projections." The event was held at the Meridian Hotel, a gleaming tower of glass and steel that screamed old money and new power. The ballroom was filled with alphas in designer suits and omegas in cocktail dresses, all of them networking with the kind of aggressive friendliness that came from open bar tabs and career ambitions. I stuck to the periphery, nursing a sparkling water and counting the minutes until I could reasonably leave. Tyler was in his element, working the room with easy charm. I was about to text him with an excuse to bail when a scent hit me like a physical blow. Pine. Smoke. Something darker underneath. Achingly familiar. My head snapped up, searching the crowd with suddenly frantic eyes. It couldn't be. The odds were astronomical. The city had millions of people, thousands of alphas. There was no way. And then I saw him. Archer stood near the center of the room, surrounded by a small group of executives who hung on his every word. He looked different from that night in the bar, polished, powerful, dangerous in a three-piece suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. His dark hair was perfectly styled now, and he wore his authority like a second skin. Someone nearby mentioned his name with reverence. "That's Archer Wolf, CEO of Wolf Enterprises, youngest billionaire in the state. Brilliant, but absolutely ruthless in business." My legs felt weak. Archer Wolf, the stranger I'd slept with, the father of my unborn child, was one of the most powerful men in the city. I needed to leave now, before he saw me, before this situation became impossibly more complicated. I turned toward the exit, but the movement caught his attention. Our eyes locked across the crowded room for a heartbeat. Neither of us moved. I watched recognition flash across his face, followed by something I couldn't quite name. Surprise, certainly, but also something deeper, more complex. His conversation stopped mid-sentence as he stared at me. Then he started walking directly toward me, purposefully. Panic flooded my system. I turned and pushed through the crowd, desperate to reach the exit. But the ballroom was too packed, and he was too fast. A hand caught my wrist, gentle but firm, and I was suddenly very aware of how much larger he was than me. "Wait." His voice was the same low rumble I remembered, but there was an edge to it now. "You're the one. I have to go." I tried to pull away, but his grip tightened slightly. "Just give me a minute. Please." Before I could respond, Tyler appeared at my side, his expression shifting from confusion to protective concern. "Evan, is everything all right?" Archer's eyes narrowed as he looked between us. "Friend of yours?" "Yes," I said quickly. "Tyler, we should leave." But Tyler was studying Archer with growing understanding, pieces clicking into place. "Wait, is this?" "Tyler," I warned. Archer's gaze sharpened. "Is this what I think it is?" The tension was thick enough to cut. People around us were starting to notice. Whispers and sidelong glances from those wondering why Archer Wolf had cornered some unknown Omega. I need some air, I managed, pulling free from his grip. This time he let me go, but I could feel his eyes burning into my back as I fled toward the terrace doors. The night air was cold against my flushed skin. I gripped the railing, trying to steady my breathing, trying to process the impossibility of what just happened. The door opened behind me. I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. "You ran away," Archer said quietly. "I'm good at that lately." He came to stand beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body, but not touching. For a long moment, we both just stared out at the glittering city lights. "I looked for you," he said finally. "After that night, I went back to the bar, asked around. No one knew who you were. That surprised me enough to make me look at him." "Why?" "Because you disappeared like smoke, and I couldn't stop thinking about you." His jaw tightened. Then I told myself it was better that way. Clean break. No complications. "Life's funny like that," I said bitterly. "Complications have a way of finding you anyway." He turned to face me fully. "What's wrong? And don't say nothing. I can see it all over you. Something's happened since that night." I should have lied. Should have made up some excuse and walked away. But I was so tired of carrying this alone, so exhausted from the weight of secrets and fear. "I'm pregnant." The words came out flat, emotionless. "About 5 weeks now." Archer went very still. When he spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. "And your friend in there?" "Tyler is just a friend. Who's letting me crash at his place while I figure out my life. The father doesn't know." I finally met his eyes. Didn't know until about 30 seconds ago. I watched understanding dawn across his face, followed by something that looked almost like fear. Yes. A single word hung between us like a grenade with the pin pulled. Archer's hand came up to his face, fingers pressing against his temples as if he could push this revelation back out of his skull. "We used protection," he demanded. "Nothing's perfect. Trust me, I'm as thrilled about this as you are." I didn't say I wasn't thrilled. He stopped, seeming to realize he didn't know what he was saying. "Does anyone else know?" "Tyler. My doctor. That's it." "What about your husband?" My bitter laugh startled both of us. "How did you know I was married?" He gestured to my left hand, where my wedding ring still sat like an accusation. "I noticed that night. Figured you had your reasons for not mentioning him." "None of my business." "He's cheating on me," I said bluntly. "Has been for months, probably." "So no, he doesn't know. This baby isn't his problem." Archer's expression darkened. "But it's mine. I wasn't going to tell you." "How could I? I didn't even know your last name." "But now you do. And I'm not the kind of man who walks away from his responsibilities." "This isn't your responsibility. It was one night, Archer. A mistake born from two broken people seeking comfort in the wrong place." "Don't call my child a mistake." His voice dropped to something dangerous. "Whatever else that night was, this baby exists now. That makes it real. That makes it mine." "You don't want this," I insisted. "You're some billionaire CEO with a reputation and an empire. I'm a graphic designer living in my friend's guest room with a failing marriage. Our worlds don't connect." "They already did. 9 weeks ago in a hotel room." His hand reached out, hovering near my face, but not quite touching. "And they're about to get a lot more connected." "What are you talking about?" "You're coming with me tonight. I'm getting you out of wherever you're staying and somewhere safe where I can." "Absolutely not." I stepped back. "You can't just commandeer my life because of one accident. Watch me." There was steel in his voice now, the commanding tone of someone used to getting exactly what he wanted. "You're carrying my child, Evan. That changes everything." Before I could argue further, the terrace door burst open and Tyler rushed out, looking panicked. "Evan, we have a problem. Julian's here." My blood ran cold. "What?" "He's inside. Looking for you. Someone must have told him they saw you here." As if summoned by our worst fears, Julian's voice carried through the open door. Evan, I know you're here. Archer's entire demeanor shifted, his body angling protectively in front of mine. Who exactly is about to walk through that door? My cheating husband, I whispered. And this is about to get very, very complicated. The look Archer gave me was absolutely predatory. Good. I was hoping for complicated. Julian burst onto the terrace like a storm given human form, his eyes wild with a mixture of confusion and possessive anger. He'd clearly had a few drinks at the event. His tie was loosened, his usually perfect hair disheveled. When his gaze landed on me, something raw and desperate crossed his features. There you are? Do you have any idea how worried I've been? You just disappeared, won't answer my calls. He stopped short when he noticed Archer standing between us, positioned like a human shield. Who the hell is this? Someone who's none of your concern. Archer's voice dropped to a dangerous register that made the hair on my arms stand up. Julian's eyes narrowed, his alpha instincts clearly bristling at the challenge. I'm talking to my husband, not you. Evan, we're leaving now. The possessive way he said my husband, after weeks of ignoring me while carrying on with Cole, made something snap inside me. No, we're not. Excuse me. Julian looked genuinely shocked, as if the concept of me defying him was incomprehensible. You heard him. Archer's stance widened slightly, and I could feel the tension radiating off him in waves. He's not going anywhere with you. Tyler appeared in the doorway, looking torn between intervening and staying out of what was clearly becoming a volatile situation. Maybe we should all take a breath. Stay out of this, Tyler. Julian snapped, not taking his eyes off Archer. I don't know who you think you are, but Evan is my spouse. We have a legal marriage, a home, a life together. Had, I corrected quietly. Past tense. Julian's attention finally shifted fully to me, and I saw genuine fear flicker across his face. What are you talking about? Baby, I know things have been strained, but we can work through this. Whatever's going on, we can fix it. The casual endearment made my stomach turn. Like you fixed things with Cole? The color drained from his face. How did you? Does it matter? My voice was steadier than I felt. I know, Julian. I've known for weeks. I saw the photo of you two at Rossini's, holding hands like teenagers in love. He stumbled back a step, all the fight suddenly draining from his posture. Evan, please. Just let me explain. It's not what you think. Then what is it? I demanded, years of trust and loyalty crystallizing into cold fury. What possible explanation makes it acceptable for you to be intimate with your secretary while I waited at home for you? Archer glanced at me with something that might have been respect, but he didn't interfere. This was my fight, and he seemed to understand that. It was a mistake, Julian said desperately. One stupid mistake that spiraled. Cole came on to me after a late meeting, and I was weak. Stop. I held up a hand. I don't want to hear the details of your betrayal. I don't care about your excuses or justifications. Then what do you want? His voice cracked. Just tell me what you want, and I'll do it. I want you to leave me alone. The words came out firm and final. I want you to go back to Cole, or whoever else you've been seeing, and I want you to stop pretending we have anything worth saving. We do, Evan. I love you. You love the idea of me, I interrupted. Stable, dependable Omega who wouldn't question you or challenge you. But I'm done being that person. Julian's gaze shifted to Archer again, and I saw understanding dawn in his eyes. This is about him, isn't it? You're throwing away 3 years of marriage for some stranger you just met. Before I could respond, Archer spoke, his voice like gravel. He's not throwing anything away. You already destroyed your marriage the moment you chose someone else. Don't blame him for moving forward. I wasn't talking to you, Julian snarled. And yet here I am answering. Archer took a deliberate step forward. Let me make something very clear. Evan is under my protection now. That means you don't contact him, don't harass him, and definitely don't show up uninvited to places he might be. Protection? Julian laughed bitterly. You've known him for what, a few hours? And you think you have any right to dictate terms to me? Archer's expression turned absolutely arctic. Longer than a few hours. And yes, I have every right, because unlike you, I have no intention of hurting him. The implication hung in the air, and I saw Julian's fists clench. For a moment, I genuinely thought they might come to blows. But Tyler stepped between them, his usually gentle demeanor hardening. Okay, that's enough, Tyler said firmly. Julian, you should go. This isn't accomplishing anything. Julian looked between the three of us, Tyler, Archer, and me, and something in his expression crumbled. You're really doing this? You're really choosing them over me? I'm choosing myself, I said softly. For the first time in our entire relationship, I'm putting my own well-being first. And that means walking away from you. He stood there for a long moment, swaying slightly, before his shoulders sagged in defeat. Fine. But when you realize you've made a mistake, when he shows you who he really is, don't come crying back to me. I won't. Julian left without another word, disappearing back into the glittering chaos of the event. The terrace fell silent except for the distant murmur of conversation and clinking glasses from inside. Tyler cleared his throat. I'll give you two a minute, he said diplomatically, heading back indoors. Alone with Archer, I felt the adrenaline start to drain away, leaving me shaky and exhausted. My hand unconsciously moved to my stomach, a protective gesture I developed over the past weeks. Are you all right? Archer asked, his aggressive stance softening now that the threat was gone. I don't know what I am. I admitted. That was my husband. 3 years of my life just ended on a hotel terrace. Ex-husband, Archer corrected gently. Or he will be soon. I nodded, too overwhelmed to argue semantics. This is insane. All of this. A month ago, my biggest problem was choosing between 2 freelance projects. And now I'm pregnant by a stranger, separated from my cheating spouse, and standing on a terrace with a billionaire CEO who apparently wants to protect me. Not a stranger anymore. Archer moved closer, his hand reaching out to touch my arm lightly. And not just wanting to protect you. I need to. That baby you're carrying, my baby, changes things. Does it have to? I looked up at him, searching his face for answers I wasn't sure existed. Can't we just, I don't know, co-parent from a distance? You have your life, your company, your reputation. I have my mess to sort out. We don't need to complicate things further. It's already complicated, he said bluntly. You think I can just walk away, knowing my child is out there, knowing you're dealing with all of this alone? I have Tyler. Tyler is a good friend, I can see that. But he's not the father. I am. His jaw set stubbornly. And I take care of what's mine. There was that possessive edge again, the one that should have frightened me, but instead made me feel inexplicably safe. I'm not a possession, Archer. No, you're not. He agreed. You're the father of my child, which makes you infinitely more important than any possession could be. I wanted to argue, to maintain my independence, to insist I could handle everything on my own. But the truth was, I was terrified. Afraid of being a single parent, terrified of facing Julian's inevitable anger when I filed for divorce, terrified of the future stretching out before me with no clear path forward. What are you proposing? I asked carefully. Come stay with me. Not permanently, not yet. Just until we figure things out. I have space, resources, and a vested interest in making sure you and the baby are healthy and safe. He paused, then added more softly. Plus, I'd like to get to know you properly. The real you, not just the broken man I met in a bar. And if we can't stand each other after a week, then we'll reassess. But at least give us, a chance to see if we can make this work. His hand moved from my arm to gently cup my face, thumb brushing across my cheekbone. I meant what I said before. I don't walk away from my responsibilities. And somewhere between that night and right now, you became more than just a responsibility. My breath hitched. Archer, you don't have to say anything yet. I'm not saying anything I don't mean. He interrupted. Just think about it. Think about what's best for you and the baby. Not Julian, not Tyler, not even me. Just you. And that, more than anything else he could have said, was what convinced me. Because he was right. I needed to stop making decisions based on what others wanted or expected and start making them based on what I needed. Okay, I whispered. I'll try it. 1 week. The smile that crossed his face was small but genuine, transforming his usually severe features into something almost beautiful. 1 week, he agreed. And then we'll see where we stand. As he pulled me into an embrace, careful, protective, warm, I let myself lean into it, just for a moment. I let someone else be strong while I fell apart. And for the first time since seeing that photograph of Julian and Cole, I felt like maybe, just maybe, everything might eventually be okay. Moving into Archer's penthouse felt surreal, like stepping into a life that belonged to someone else. The building itself was exclusive, the kind where you needed 3 different security clearances just to reach the private elevator. His apartment occupied the entire top floor, all floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist luxury that screamed old money despite Archer being relatively young for his level of success. The guest suite is through here, he said, leading me down a hallway lined with abstract art that probably cost more than my annual salary. Private bathroom, walk-in closet. I've had some basics brought in, but if you need anything else, just let me know. I stood in the doorway of what he called a guest suite, but looked more like a 5-star hotel room. The bed was enormous, dressed in what felt like Egyptian cotton. Through another door, I could see a bathroom with a soaking tub that could fit 3 people. This is too much, I said quietly. It's barely enough. Archer set my single suitcase, hastily packed at Tyler's apartment, on a bench at the foot of the bed. You're carrying my child, Evan. You deserve comfort, safety, and anything else you need. The way he kept emphasizing my child should have annoyed me, but instead it stirred something warm in my chest. Julian had never been particularly interested in the idea of children. We discussed it abstractly, the way people discuss retirement plans, someday, maybe if circumstances align perfectly. But Archer spoke about this baby, unplanned, unexpected, the result of one grief-stricken night, like it was already the most important thing in his world. I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow, I mentioned, pulling clothes from my suitcase. Routine checkup, but they'll do an ultrasound. You don't have to come if you're busy. What time? I blinked at the interruption. 2:30. I'll clear my afternoon. He said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world, like multi-million-dollar deals could simply be rescheduled. Archer, I'm sure you have more important. Nothing is more important than this. His green eyes pinned me in place. Nothing. Clear. I nodded, unable to form words around the lump in my throat. That night, I lay in that massive bed, staring at the ceiling and trying to process how drastically my life had changed. 2 months ago, I'd been planning a 3rd anniversary dinner for Julian. Now I was pregnant, separated, and living with a virtual stranger who happened to be a billionaire. My phone buzzed. Against my better judgment, I checked it. Julian, we need to talk. Really talk. Please. Another message. I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But 3 years deserves more than this. Another. Cole means nothing. You mean everything. Come home. I turned off my phone without responding. The next morning, Archer was already in the kitchen when I emerged, looking unfairly attractive in business casual, slacks, and a dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He was making what appeared to be an elaborate omelet. You cook? I asked, surprised. When necessary. He slid a plate toward me. Protein is important for the baby. Also made decaf coffee, though the internet says you can have up to 200 milligrams of caffeine daily if you want it. I stared at the perfect omelet, then at him. You researched pregnancy nutrition? Obviously. He poured himself regular coffee, leaning against the counter. I also ordered about 15 books on pregnancy and infant care. They'll be delivered today. Something about this powerful, ruthless businessman frantically Googling pregnancy facts made me smile. The first genuine smile in what felt like forever. That's actually really sweet. He looked almost embarrassed. It's practical. I don't like being unprepared. We ate in comfortable silence, and I found myself studying him in daylight. Without the haze of alcohol and grief, I could appreciate the sharp intelligence in his eyes, the way he moved with controlled precision, the slight silver threading through his dark hair at the temples. He was probably in his early 30s, successful beyond most people's wildest dreams, and here he was making me breakfast and reading pregnancy books. Why are you really doing this? I asked suddenly. The truth, not the "it's my responsibility" line. Archer set down his coffee, considering his answer carefully. You want honesty? Please. That night at the bar, I was at my lowest point. I'd just finalized a buyout that destroyed a company my father built, put hundreds of people out of work. It was the right business decision. The company was failing anyway, but it felt like betraying everything he stood for. He met my eyes. Then you walked up to me, this beautiful, broken thing. And for a few hours, I didn't feel quite so alone in my misery. My chest tightened. That's why you looked for me after? Partly, but also because you didn't care who I was or what I did. You just saw another person in pain and offered companionship without agenda. His hand reached across the counter, stopping just short of touching mine. Most people want something from me: money, connections, status. You just wanted someone to sit in the dark with. Before I could respond, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen and frowned. I need to take this. Work crisis. While he disappeared into his home office, I cleaned up breakfast and explored the penthouse. It was beautiful but sterile, like a showroom. No personal photos, no sentimental clutter, nothing that revealed who Archer Wolf actually was beneath the billionaire facade. The appointment that afternoon was eye-opening. Archer insisted on driving, his hand hovering protectively near my lower back as we entered the medical building. In the examination room, he held my hand during the ultrasound, his grip tightening when the technician found the heartbeat. There, she said, pointing to a small flutter on the screen. Strong and steady. I couldn't breathe. That tiny pulsing light was my baby. Our baby. Real and alive, and depending on me to make the right choices. When I glanced at Archer, there were actual tears in his eyes. This man who faced down corporate rivals without flinching was crying over a grainy ultrasound image. Can we get copies? He asked hoarsely. Of course. We left with a strip of ultrasound photos and a prescription for prenatal vitamins. Archer was unusually quiet during the drive home, one hand on the wheel and the other resting on my knee, casual but grounding. Back at the penthouse, things shifted. He was less careful, more tactile, a hand on my shoulder when he passed, fingers brushing mine when handing me water. Nothing inappropriate, but definitely more intimate than two people who'd spent one drunken night together. I was arranging the ultrasound photos on the fridge when the doorbell rang. Archer answered it, and I heard a familiar voice that made my blood run cold. I need to see him. Now. Julian. I came around the corner to find my soon-to-be ex-husband standing in Archer's doorway, looking haggard and desperate. His eyes found mine immediately. Evan, thank God. I've been trying to reach you for days. He tried to move past Archer, who blocked him effortlessly. We need to talk about us. About our marriage. There is no us, I said firmly. Not anymore. Don't say that, please. He finally seemed to notice the ultrasound photo still in my hand. His face went pale. What is that? I looked at the image, then at Archer, who gave me an almost imperceptible nod. This was my truth to tell. I'm pregnant, I said clearly. And before you ask, no, it's not yours. Julian stumbled backward like I'd physically struck him. You were pregnant with his child? He pointed at Archer with shaking hands. How long have you been sleeping with him? How could you cheat on me? The accusation was so absurd, I almost laughed. I didn't cheat, Julian. We slept together once. Weeks after I found out about you and Cole. One time. One night. And yes, I'm pregnant. This is insane. Julian ran his hands through his hair frantically. You're throwing away our entire life for one mistake? For some random hookup that resulted in this. Archer's entire body tensed dangerously. Careful how you finish that sentence. This isn't your business. Julian shouted. This is between me and my husband. Ex-husband, I corrected coldly. Where he will be once my lawyer files the papers tomorrow. You've already contacted a lawyer? Julian looked genuinely devastated now. Evan, please. I know I hurt you. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but don't do this. Don't throw away 3 years because I was weak. One time, I stepped forward, anger finally overriding my sadness. You had an affair, Julian. A sustained, deliberate affair with your secretary. That's not one weak moment. That's a choice you made repeatedly. And sleeping with him wasn't a choice? Julian gestured wildly at Archer. It was a different choice, made by a different person than who I am now. I placed my hand protectively over my still flat stomach. I'm not sorry it happened. This baby is the only good thing to come from the worst period of my life. Julian's face crumpled. I've lost you. I've really lost you. You lost me the moment you held Cole's hand in that restaurant. I kept my voice steady despite the tears threatening. Everything since has just been me realizing it. He looked between Archer and me one final time, then turned and walked away. The door closed behind him with a soft click that felt louder than a gunshot. I stood there trembling until Archer's arms came around me from behind, solid, warm. You okay? He murmured against my hair. I will be, I whispered back. Eventually. Wrapped in his embrace, I almost believed it. The weeks following Julian's departure developed into an unexpected rhythm. Archer worked from home more often than not, his home office door always open in case I needed anything. I discovered he was addicted to terrible reality TV, that he took his coffee black because his father had, and that despite his ruthless reputation, he was surprisingly gentle with the stray cat that occasionally visited the balcony. Her name is Margaret. He informed me seriously, setting out a bowl of expensive salmon. She has standards. I watched this billionaire CEO hand-feeding a mangy cat and felt something shift in my chest, something warm and dangerous and altogether too much. Like affection, my divorce papers were filed. Julian contested nothing, which somehow made it worse. He sent one final message. I hope he makes you happier than I did. You deserve that. I didn't respond. Dr. Chun recommended a pregnancy support group for first-time parents, and to my surprise, Archer insisted on attending with me. We sat in a circle of expectant couples, most of them married or in long-term arrangements, while I introduced us awkwardly. I'm Evan, about 10 weeks along. This is Archer, the father. We're figuring things out. A woman across the circle smiled knowingly. Aren't we all? After the session, while we waited for the elevator, Archer asked, what are we figuring out, exactly? How to co-parent. How to be in each other's lives. I stopped, unsure how to finish. How to be us, he suggested quietly. The elevator arrived, but neither of us moved. People flowed around us, and Archer's green eyes searched mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. Is there an us? I whispered. Instead of answering, he kissed me. Right there in the medical building lobby, with pregnant women and concerned partners and gossiping nurses all around. His hand cupped my jaw, thumb stroking my cheekbone, and the kiss was nothing like our first desperate encounter. This was deliberate, questioning, offering rather than taking. When he pulled back, my lips were tingling and my heart was racing for reasons that had nothing to do with pregnancy hormones. Does that answer your question? His voice was rough. It raises several new ones, I managed. He smiled. A real, unguarded smile that transformed his severe features. Good. I like keeping you curious. That night, he asked me to have dinner with him, not in the penthouse, but at an actual restaurant. French, intimate, the kind of place that required reservations months in advance, but miraculously had a table when Archer Wolf called. Is this a date? I asked as he held out my chair. Would you like it to be? I thought about it while studying the menu I couldn't read. Yes, I decided. I think I would. Over wine for him and sparkling water for me. We talked, really talked in a way we hadn't that first night. He told me about growing up with impossible expectations, about his father's sudden death leaving him the company at 25, about the isolation that came with power and wealth. People either want something from me or fear me, he said, swirling his wine. There's no in-between. I don't fear you, don't you? Even a little? His eyes glinted with dark humor. The ruthless CEO who swept you away from your husband? Ex-husband. I corrected automatically, then considered. Maybe I was a little scared at first. You're very intense. And now, I reached across the table, taking his hand. Now I think you're just a person who cares more than he wants to admit. You hide behind this terrifying reputation, but you read pregnancy books and cry at ultrasounds and feed stray cats salmon. His fingers tightened around mine. Don't tell anyone about the cat. It'll ruin my image. We laughed, and it felt good. Natural, easy, like we'd been doing this for years instead of weeks. The second month brought more changes. My body started showing subtle signs, a slight curve to my belly, increased sensitivity, energy levels that fluctuated wildly. Archer became hypervigilant, researching everything from optimal room temperature to the safest cleaning products. You know, I managed to survive 26 years before you came along. I teased one morning, finding him rearranging the kitchen to put sharp knives in higher cabinets. Yes, but now you have me, so you don't have to just survive. He closed the cabinet firmly. You get to thrive. Tyler visited regularly, and I watched with amusement as he and Archer developed a cautious friendship based primarily on their mutual investment in my well-being. He's good for you, Tyler admitted one afternoon while Archer was on a conference call. Different from what I expected. What did you expect? A rich asshole, using you for convenient access to his kid. Tyler's expression turned serious. But he actually cares. Like, genuinely cares. The way he looks at you when you're not watching. He trailed off meaningfully. I knew that look. I'd caught it reflected in windows, in mirrors, in Archer's unguarded moments. The same way I probably looked at him. Like something precious and terrifying all at once. One evening, about 3 months into my pregnancy, Archer found me on the balcony staring at the city lights. Margaret the cat purred against my leg while I absently stroked her mangy fur. Penny for your thoughts? He settled beside me, our shoulders touching. Just thinking about how different everything is from 3 months ago. How different I am. Better different or worse different. I considered carefully. Scary different. But maybe necessary different. I looked up at him. I was so comfortable in my life with Julian. Comfortable, but not happy. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. His arm came around my shoulders, pulling me against his side. Comfort can be its own kind of trap. Are you comfortable? I asked suddenly. With all of this? The baby, me, the instant family you didn't plan for? Archer was quiet for a long moment, and I felt my anxiety rising. Then he spoke, his words careful and deliberate. I've never been comfortable in my entire life. I've been successful, powerful, wealthy, but never comfortable. Never at peace. He tilted my chin up so I had to meet his eyes. Until you moved in here. Until I started coming home to someone who didn't want my money or my connections. Just Archer. I'm falling in love with you. He interrupted, the words tumbling out rushed and graceless. Hell, maybe I already have. I don't know the exact moment it happened. Somewhere between ultrasounds and pregnancy cravings and watching you stand up to your ex-husband. But it's there, and it's real, and I need you to know that. Before I could respond, he kissed me, cutting off his own rambling confession with his lips on mine, his hands in my hair, his entire body pressed against me. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, I rested my forehead against his. I'm falling too, I whispered, and it terrifies me, because the last time I loved someone, he destroyed me. I won't. His hands framed my face, thumbs brushing away tears I hadn't realized were falling. I swear to you, Evan, I will mess up. I will be overprotective and intense, and probably drive you crazy. But I will never betray you. Never. Looking into those fierce green eyes, I believed him. We moved inside as rain started to fall, Margaret darting ahead of us into the warmth. Archer's hand found mine, fingers intertwining naturally, and I realized this was what home felt like. Not a place or a building, but a person. This person, that night, he asked if I wanted to move from the guest suite to his room. Not for anything physical. We'd maintained careful boundaries, but just to be together. I said yes. Lying in his arms, his hand resting protectively on my growing belly where our child slept, I felt pieces of myself clicking back into place. Different pieces than before, arranged in a new pattern, but whole nonetheless. What are you thinking about? Archer murmured into my hair. How something that started as the worst night of my life led to this. To you. To us. I laced my fingers through his on my stomach. To choosing myself and somehow finding everything I didn't know I needed. His arms tightened around me. We're going to be okay. All three of us. And for the first time since seeing that photograph of Julian and Cole, since my world imploded and reformed, I genuinely believed it. We were broken pieces that somehow fit together, creating something stronger than either of us had been alone. Outside, the city glittered with infinite possibilities. Inside, wrapped in Archer's warmth with our baby growing between us, I'd already found mine. 5 months later, I stood in the nursery of our penthouse, watching Archer carefully assemble a crib while Margaret the cat supervised from a nearby windowsill. My belly was round and full now, and I could feel our daughter moving inside me. Kicking, rolling, making her presence known. You're doing it wrong, I said mildly. I am doing it perfectly. Archer frowned at the instruction manual. This diagram is ambiguous. It's not ambiguous. You just refuse to admit you're wrong. I am never wrong. I'm a billionaire. Billions don't make you immune to IKEA instructions. He looked up, a rare, genuine smile spreading across his face. I love you. You know that, right? I know. I crossed the room to stand beside him, resting my hand on his shoulder. I love you too, even when you're stubborn. Especially when I'm stubborn. Especially when you're stubborn. He pulled me into his arms, careful of my belly, and kissed me softly. Thank you, he murmured, for giving me a chance, for trusting me, for this. I leaned into him, feeling our daughter kick against his stomach. Thank you for being worth it. The nursery was almost complete now, soft gray walls, a white crib, a mobile of stars and moons that Archer had insisted on. There was a rocking chair by the window where I would nurse, and a bookshelf already filled with children's books that Archer had been collecting for months. She's going to be so spoiled, I said, looking around the room. Obviously, he agreed. She's a wolf. Spoiling is in the blood. Before she's even born, she'll have everything she could ever want. His hand moved to my belly, feeling our daughter's movements. Everything she deserves. I looked at this man, this powerful, intense, unexpectedly tender alpha who had walked into my life at my lowest point and refused to leave. He had seen me broken and hadn't looked away. He had taken responsibility for a child he hadn't planned for and turned it into a family we both wanted. Archer, I said quietly. I think I knew, that first night. When I walked up to your table in that bar. I think some part of me knew you were important. He pulled me closer, his lips brushing my temple. I think I knew too. I just didn't want to admit it. Scared, terrified. He admitted. But it was worth it. You were worth it. We stood there in the nursery of our penthouse, surrounded by baby furniture and future hopes, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Complete. Not just content or happy, but whole. I had found my way through the wreckage of my old life and built something new with someone who saw me, truly saw me, and loved what he found. Thank you, I whispered. For what? For seeing me. For believing in me. For making me feel like I deserved this. His arms tightened around me. You always deserved this. You just had to wait for the right person to show it. Outside, the city glittered with infinite possibilities. Inside, with Archer's arms around me and our daughter growing strong, I had already found my forever. Our daughter arrived on a stormy Tuesday night in late October, 12 hours of labor that left me exhausted and exhilarated. Archer never left my side, holding my hand through every contraction, his face pale with worry even as he murmured words of encouragement. You're doing beautifully, he kept saying. You're incredible. I'm so proud of you. When the doctor finally placed our daughter on my chest, I looked down at her tiny, perfect face and felt tears streaming down my cheeks. She had Archer's dark hair and what I hoped was my stubbornness. Her cry was fierce and demanding, a tiny declaration of existence that made my heart swell to bursting. She's perfect, Archer whispered, his voice thick with emotion. His hand hovered over her tiny head, trembling slightly. She's absolutely perfect. We named her Lily, a flower that bloomed even in the darkest places, like hope had bloomed in me after the worst night of my life. She has your nose, I said, tracing her cheek with my finger. She has your strength, Archer replied, kissing my forehead. Thank you, Evan, for everything. I looked at him, this man who had walked into my life when I was broken and refused to leave. He had seen me at my lowest and had stayed. He had taken responsibility for a child he hadn't planned for and turned it into a family we both wanted. He had loved me through my healing and helped me become someone I was proud to be. Thank you for finding me, I whispered, for seeing me when I was invisible. Never invisible, he said, his green eyes shining. Never again. 1 year later, we celebrated Lily's first birthday in the penthouse garden, surrounded by friends and family. Tyler was there, of course, already the doting uncle. Ivy had flown in, tears streaming down her face as she watched Lily take her first wobbly steps toward the cake. She's walking, Ivy gasped. She's actually walking. She's been practicing for weeks, I said, watching my daughter with a mixture of pride and disbelief. She's determined. She gets that from you, Archer said, his arms sliding around my waist. I think she gets it from both of us. Lily reached the cake table, her tiny hand reaching for the frosting before anyone could stop her. She smeared it across her face with a delighted squeal, and the entire garden erupted in laughter. She's perfect, Archer said, his voice soft with wonder. I can't believe she's ours. I leaned into him, feeling the familiar warmth of his presence. Neither can I. Sometimes I still wake up and think it's all a dream. It's not a dream. He turned me to face him, his eyes serious. This is real. We're real. Our family is real. I kissed him, soft and slow, while our guests cheered and Lily smeared frosting across her high chair. I love you, I said. I never thought I'd have this, a family, a home, someone who actually sees me. I love you too, he murmured. And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never forget it. 3 years later, I sat in the garden watching Lily chase Margaret the cat around the flower beds, her laughter filling the air like music. Archer was beside me, his hand in mine, watching our daughter with the same quiet wonder that still made my heart flutter. She's so full of life, he said. She's full of you. She's full of both of us. He squeezed my hand. The best parts of both of us. I leaned against him, feeling the familiar contentment settle over me. Do you ever think about that night? The bar. Every day. His voice was soft. I think about how close I came to walking away. How close I came to never knowing you. But you didn't. No, I didn't. He turned to face me. And it was the best decision I ever made. I kissed him, tasting forever on his lips. The garden was blooming around us. Our daughter was laughing. And the man beside me was the love of my life. I had found my way through the wreckage of my old life and built something beautiful from the ashes. I love you, Archer. I love you too, Evan. From the moment you walked up to me in that bar, I think I knew you were the one. I just didn't know how to admit it. It took me longer to figure it out, I admit it. But I'm glad I did. He pulled me close, and we sat together in comfortable silence, watching our daughter play and the sun set over the city. It wasn't a perfect life, no life is, but it was ours, and that was more than enough.